Hi everybody, welcome back. In the last video, we saw that phrasal verbs can be quite difficult for people learning English because the combination of a given verb and preposition often appears to make no sense. For example, in my last video, we saw that combining the verb go with the preposition off creates the phrasal verb to go off. And this can mean either to explode or to start ringing loudly. Now, if you don't understand why go off can mean these things, you should probably watch that video first before watching this one. The link to that video is in the description below. So, phrasal verbs are actually quite logical and can make a lot of sense, but they often don't appear this way at first. This is because most people often don't really know what the preposition of a phrasal verb actually means. So, if we want to be able to understand the logic of phrasal verbs, we need to have a much deeper understanding of the different meanings of English prepositions. Now, before we do this, we should first take a look at how words in general can acquire multiple meanings. And there are basically two ways this can happen. The first way is just by random chance. An example of this is the word bank. So, bank can actually mean two different things. The first meaning is the place you go to borrow money. This is the meaning that most people know. However, bank can also mean the edge of a river or lake. That is, the area where the water and land meet. These two meanings of the word bank actually have very different origins. A money bank comes from the old Italian word banca, which means table. This used to refer to a moneylender's table, which is where people would go to borrow money. A riverbank, on the other hand, comes from the old Germanic word bankon, which means slope. Here, we can see how the idea of a slope came to mean riverbank, since a riverbank is just where the land slopes downward into the water. In modern English, bank and bank have the same spelling and pronunciation, but they have very different origins and meanings. Words like this are called homonyms. They have the same spelling and pronunciation, but their meanings and often their origins are not connected in any way. Now, a second way that a word can acquire a different meaning is to extend that word metaphorically. An example of this is the word head. Usually, head refers to the part of your body where your brain is. However, head can also mean the leader of a group or organization. Now, it should be pretty easy to see how the second meaning came from the first. Your physical head controls your body, and the leader of a group controls that group. Because of these similarities, we can metaphorically extend the word head to refer to the leader of a group. Words like this are called polysemes. A polyseme is a word that has multiple meanings, but these meanings are related to each other in some way. Usually this is done by taking a word and extending its meaning metaphorically to describe things with similar qualities. So, to recap, there are two possible ways for a word to acquire multiple meanings. The first way is by random chance, like with the words bank and bank. And the second way is to extend that word metaphorically, like with the word head. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, that's interesting, but why does this matter? How are homonyms and polysemes related to understanding English prepositions? Well, in order to really understand and remember all the different meanings of a preposition, it's very helpful to understand where these different meanings come from. And even though a preposition can mean many different and sometimes unusual things, almost all of its meanings are in fact connected to each other in some way. That is, English prepositions are almost always polysemes. Each of its meanings is usually just an extension of another meaning. Now that we know this, we can use it as a starting point to get a much deeper understanding of English prepositions, especially when they're used with phrasal verbs. So, in the upcoming videos, I'm going to try to explain phrasal verb prepositions with this in mind by showing you, first, what the basic or core meaning of a given preposition is. Second, how we can extend this basic meaning to get other meanings and senses. And finally, how these other extended meanings can help us make sense of phrasal verbs. And we'll start that in the next video. See you next time. Cheers.